What a beautiful day. I was talking to Ruth Sperling. She's got a lovely son, Josh. He's 23.
Yes.
Down syndrome. She had this sort of, like, she thought it was a lovely way of somebody describing to her when she was giving birth that it's like you're on a plane to Italy and suddenly you're told, oh no, you're going to land in Paris instead. You know, you're not landing in Italy. In a way, June 11th, 2021 was more like a little bit of a plane crash, a lot of turbulence for you, because within an hour of the cesarean birth, you were told, and that was, you've admitted, just devastating.
Yes.
Did any part of you kind of have the thought that this is going to be fine though? Because you are a very happy person now, you know, like just generally yourself and Andrew, and you've got a lovely family. Did any part of your brain kind of dare to think everything's going to be great?
Not at that time. No, not at that time. I think there was just a lot of factors that came into play then. You know, it was the cesarean birth, they were 10 weeks early, you know, so there was that factor of, like, no matter about the diagnosis, they were going on to spend time in hospital. And there was our child at home, our 3-year-old at home. There was this diagnosis, we didn't know anybody at the time with Down syndrome, we didn't know too much about it, so it was learning all about that. And then it was just the confusion as to how you could firstly have a postnatal diagnosis of Down syndrome, because I just didn't know that was possible, and then to have twins with one of them having Down syndrome. It was just such a confusing time. So it was just like all of these things coming at you at once, and it was hard to see the wood from the trees really for a long time.
You said that, you know, you sort of had a feeling that between the two twins, and they ended up being Theo and Freddie, but twin 1 and twin 2, you felt there was a difference because one was very lively, which turned to be Theo, and the other one was quieter. And then I think it was a 28 kind of week scan, everything fine. 28 week scan, they said, you know, we need to talk to you. They realised that there was a slower development going on. So had you begun to, I don't know, suspect that, okay, there's going to be definitely a difference here, there's going to be two different kinds of kids?
Yeah, no, I don't think in terms of like having like a different genetic makeup or anything. There's definitely, I felt like just one was way more likely than the other, and to the point where I was thinking, is he okay in there? You know, is there one of them is feeding a lot and the other one's his kicks were very light and just not as much. And I was thinking, you know, is maybe just one more lively than the other, one's going to be quieter. Or then I did start making regular trips into the hospital to make sure everything was okay, and I was always reassured that everything was fine until that 28-week mark.
You've obviously been very kind of you know, determined to be honest in the book, and for example, when you found out in January 2021 that you were pregnant with twins, you weren't delighted because you knew this was going to be a lot of work. You knew this was going to shake up a lot of your plans, because both you and Andrew are ambitious. You know, you met in Avoca in 2010, and you just always had this drive. And now suddenly realize that's going to be a lot of, you know, work outside of work. So that idea then that you would get to a point where there's another layer of work to be involved. Naturally enough, that was basically too much, and you're very open about that too in the book. The kids are separated. One has to stay, Freddie has to stay in, Theo comes home, and you were kind of separated at the same time because of that. That kind of revisiting that, was it therapeutic? Was it tough?
Both. Yeah, it was both. It was therapeutic to kind of get it down on paper. I feel like I let a lot go, a lot of old feelings I was holding on to, like, you know, the resentment, the anger for a lot of the time that we lost in that, you know, that early stage of having twins. Like, you know, I hear people talking about, God, how crazy it is having twins and trying to get them to feed at the same time, sleep at the same time. It's madness, and I never experienced that because the twins were separated for their first year. Like, so a lot of those feelings came up, and but then on the other hand, it was healing, you know, because it was actually looking at what we did have. Okay, we didn't have that experience, but look at what experience we did have, and we have so much to be grateful for. And you know that we were given our unique twins for a reason. You know, they've taught us so much. Yeah. Well,
there is that feeling of you know, and those kind of long journeys into the night, it's almost like Lord of the Rings. You don't necessarily know that you're going to get the ring down the mountain, but when you have actually sort of finished it, looking back, it's a different kind of sensation. And I know for both you and for Andrew, this idea that I'm guessing people sort of turn to you for the fact that they may be going through something similar, or you've met other people who've had that experience. Has all that sort of, I don't know if you feel like you're part of a club, or you feel like you're part of a community that understands instinctively the misconceptions and all that kind of stuff?
100%, yeah. Because I reached out to a lot of people in the early days. Like, you know, you'll find that people, when they receive postnatal diagnosis for any kind of diagnosis, you know, there'll be people that maybe deal with it silently, and then there's people that go out looking for help and looking for other experiences, and I'm one of those people. So I found the Facebook groups, I found the online communities, you know, I found people on Instagram that I reached out to, other people who are twins with Down syndrome, people having Down syndrome. I wanted everybody to talk to me and tell me about things, and that helped me. So I feel like having those conversations was really important, and you learn so much. Like our community here in Wicklow, we have kids ranging from a lot around Freddie's age actually and younger, and then you have kids that are maybe like 8 to 12, and then you have the young adults, and I've met all those different families and kids and young adults, and you learn so much from talking to the other parents, and you really realise it's not this scary world that you think it's going to be.
Right.
Like, it's a beautiful life, you know. So and you mentioned Ruth and Joshua, and like Joshua works with us in Kitchen 28, and it's just something to like. I just know Freddie's future is going to be so bright when I can look at somebody like Joshua, who's just incredible.
Well, I think that for both yourself and for Ruth and all that, it must be kind of rewarding to know that you're living in a time when people just, you know, it is much more kind of like part of the world. Like, people aren't sort of an us and them thing, or there isn't that feeling like they're not sure what to say or what to do. It's completely, you know. Yeah,
I think universally there's a long way still to go with it, but I think in Ireland in particular we're really good at it. We're really good with inclusion and accepting that, like, people who are a bit different into our communities. So I feel like Ireland is actually a really great place to be raising children with Down syndrome. Yeah.
And it is a learning always in life, and I know for you it's only like 2021 that suddenly you've got to figure out, you know, what this world is all about, what Freddie's world is going to be, and that natural thing of jumping years ahead and thinking about their school and all that kind of stuff. I don't know whether you felt at the time that, you know, I don't know whether you would have felt it was very negative in your head that his life was going to be, or, right?
Yeah. When that diagnosis was given to us an hour after their birth, I jumped 20 years ahead. So I was thinking, okay, school, preschool, primary school, secondary school, getting into the workforce, all those flashes came into my mind. It was like, is he going to have any opportunities? And I had such a negative idea, again, because I didn't know anyone with Down syndrome and I wasn't educated on it. But our experience so far, like Freddie's only 3.5, but our experience so far has just been amazing. Like, he's been welcomed into his preschool, integrated with everybody, not treated any differently, and our experience so far has been amazing. So
it would have been a journey for all of the family, but I'm guessing for Harry, he's a toddler, he's beginning to understand the world. When Freddie finally came home, I mean, was he, I don't know how he kind of, you know, would be a little less sort of, you know, worried than we would be about the future.
Like,
he just thinks
so
it's
much
here.
more resilient, like they really are, and they just accept what's in front of them. And you know, like Freddie came home and he was on oxygen and he was on tube feeding, so he had a tube in his nose. He now has a tube in his tummy. But you know, at first Harry's like, "What's that?" And you know, but once you explained it to him, he was like, "Okay," he just moved on, and he just didn't see Freddie any differently. And then, you know, when Harry's friends would come and see Freddie, and they'd be like, "What's that?" And Harry'd be like, "What?" Because it was so normal to him then, you know. And then he explained it to his friends, and they're like, "Oh yeah." So, you know, they just take everything as it is, and it's really innocent, and it's really lovely.
And at that point, where were you on the kind of journey of being okay with everything and feeling good about it, as opposed to, you know, the natural kind of panic that you had? But given that, you know, life is turning out okay and everyone's fine and Freddie's fine, was there a moment or a turning point or a period where you realised this is actually a good life that we're going to have now?
Yeah, I think, well, a big turning point for me in terms of accepting Freddie's diagnosis was an interaction I had with a cleaner in Cornwall Children's Hospital when I was really, really struggling. I was probably going through the hardest time of the whole period, and that interaction came at the right time. She basically came into the room and she was talking to me about a daughter that she had with Down syndrome who had sadly passed away, and she spoke with her daughter with such love, and she basically said at the end of the conversation, "Treasure that boy, he's a blessing." And for me that was a big turning point, because I looked past his diagnosis for the first time and I just saw him as him. He was 4 months old at that point, and it took me 4 months to see past Down syndrome and just see him as Freddie. So that was a big turning point, I suppose, in terms of accepting the diagnosis. But I think probably about 6 months after Freddie came home, when he was 18 months old, well, he came home when he was 13 months, so about 18 months, there was a big shift. He came off oxygen, he was starting to do things independently, and it was a big moment of, okay, things are getting better and life is getting good again.
Elvis bless that cleaner. That was a nice chance kind of meeting. These things can be huge later on, you realise.
Yeah.
And of course, you and Andrew, being the type of people you are, you got very heavily involved in doing good in this area, and you've raised a huge amount of money. I know there was like 17,000+ from you know, one of the fundraisers. That feeling of becoming so involved and wanting to sort of, you know, basically help others who may have gone or be going through the same thing. Was that an early decision? Was that just something that happened organically?
Yeah, I think, like, in my nature, I love organising events, like, you know, from our catering business, and it's something that I feel like is ingrained in me, and I have a lot of experience in doing it, so it's not that huge of a. I've heard of other people organising fundraising like, oh my god, so much work. It didn't feel like that for me because it's. I suppose I have the contacts and I know the industry, but the Down Syndrome Centre was really the first time we went there, and they were just so incredible to us and the other families and the children. It was just their motto is a place to thrive, and it really is a place to thrive. And it's they rely solely on private funding. They don't get any government funding in order to keep the centre open. They provide therapies for our children, and I really wanted to give back to them because they've just been so amazing. So yeah, the two went hand in hand really, and World Down Syndrome Day was coming up on the 21st of March of that year. And so I got the two together, raise money for the centre and organise an event, and it all went really well.
We'll include a donate button in the piece above the video, just to, if you want to throw something in there.
Thank you.
The book itself, huge response. I know that you were on Mary McCallaghan, you've been on East Coast FM. That feeling of it being out there now, is that it's almost like, we create something like that and it sort of goes out there like a kid in its own way. It's going out into the world. That I don't know what that's slightly frightening, whether it's just
terrifying.
A thrill.
It's an understatement.
Right.
It is, because I suppose it's not a fiction book, it's a memoir, it's my personal experience, it's our lived experience, it's what we went through, particularly me, and I talk a lot about maternal mental health, and I get really honest about feelings I had, experiences I went through, myself and Andrew's relationship, and it's like burying myself there, and that's terrifying, and it opened. I feel like I know I'm open up to judgment on certain things, but I also feel like the people who I'm trying to reach with this book won't judge me, and they will not only not judge me, but they are going to get validation from it, and that makes it worth it.
Well, having your diary out there, as difficult it is for people to read your thoughts, and you've been very honest in the book, but as you say, that's going to be huge to those who are just not sure where they're going or what's going on in their life, and it'll give them a sense of course you can feel afraid, and you can feel negative things because you just don't know. So that's got to be a lovely feeling that there's going to be people out there who'll change their perception of what they're going through.
I wrote it with that in mind, that I'll help people that are going through it at this point or will go through it in the future. But actually what I didn't actually realise I would get from it is so many people that don't even have children with a disability, just mums that have struggled, that have found it hard, that are it's like, oh, you're opening up a conversation about the difficulties that we go through with in postpartum, with anxiety, depression, stress, and it's opening up this conversation and taking that taboo away from I'm playing a small part in trying to take that taboo away, and I feel like that is something that has been an added bonus writing this book, that I feel like is going to open up conversations.
Well, I know in the rumour mill now there's talk of Brad Pitt and Angelina Jolie getting back together for the adaptation, so just if I hear any more about that, I'll let you know.